The stars looked like tiny dots on a black canvas as the human ship Horizon moved slowly through the emptiness of space. Captain James stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. He was a tall man with short gray hair and a face marked by years of space travel. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Officer Ryan, who was in charge of the ship's scanners. His fingers moved quickly across the glowing panel in front of him. "What is it?" James asked, walking over to Ryan's station. "It's a ship, sir, but it's not answering any of our calls, and it's not in our database." James frowned. They were far from any known space routes. Finding another ship here was unusual. "Show me." The main screen changed to show a massive vessel drifting silently in space. It was at least 5 times bigger than the Horizon. Its dark hull seemed to swallow the light from nearby stars, making it look like a shadow against the backdrop of space. Strange marks covered its surface, possibly writing in an unknown language. "Any life signs?" James asked. "None that we can detect, sir," Ryan replied. "The ship appears to be dead." The door to the bridge opened, and Engineer Marcus walked in. He was younger than James, with dark skin and clever eyes that missed nothing. Behind him came Science Officer Alina, her red hair tied back, and Security Officer Thorn, whose hand never strayed far from his weapon. "What did you find?" Marcus asked, looking at the screen. "A ghost ship," James said. "No life signs, no response to our calls." Elena moved to one of the science stations and began running her own scans. After a few minutes, she looked up with excitement in her eyes. "Captain, the technology on that ship is unlike anything we've ever seen. The energy readings are off our charts, even though most systems seem to be dormant." "Could it be dangerous?" Thorn asked, ever cautious. "Anything unknown is potentially dangerous," Elena said. "But think about what we could learn from it." James thought for a moment. Their mission was to explore and gather knowledge. This strange ship was exactly the kind of discovery they were looking for, but Thorn was right to be careful. "What do we know about its weapons?" James asked. Ryan checked his readings again. "The ship has what appear to be weapon ports along its hull, very advanced. If they were to activate, they could probably destroy us in seconds. But they're not active now." James pressed. "No, sir. Most of the ship seems to be in some kind of sleep mode." James made his decision. "We're going to investigate. Thorn, prepare a boarding team. Elena, Marcus, you're with him. I want to know what that ship is and where it came from." Elena's face lit up, but Thorn frowned. "Captain, I strongly advise against this," Thorn said. "We don't know what's waiting for us there." "That's exactly why we need to go," Elena argued. "This could be the most important discovery of our time." "I agree with Elena," Marcus added. "As long as we're careful, the potential knowledge we could gain is worth the risk." James nodded. "Prepare your team, Thorn. Take all necessary precautions. I want constant communication. At the first sign of danger, you return immediately." 30 minutes later, the small boarding shuttle left the Horizon and approached the mysterious ship. Inside the shuttle, Thorn checked his weapon one last time, while Elena could barely contain her excitement. Marcus sat quietly, his mind already working on the engineering problems they might face. "Look at the size of it," Elena whispered as they got closer. The alien ship loomed before them, massive and silent like a mountain floating in space. They found what looked like a docking bay and carefully guided their shuttle inside. The bay was dark, with only their shuttle's lights cutting through the blackness. As they landed, the team put on their spacesuits. "Atmosphere check," Thorn asked. "There's air," Marcus confirmed, looking at his scanner. "It's breathable, but thin. Better keep our suits on for now." They stepped out of the shuttle into the vast docking bay. Their lights revealed rows of smaller craft, alien in design, parked neatly along the walls. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust. "How long has this ship been drifting?" Thorn wondered aloud. "Years, maybe centuries," Elena replied, running her hand along one of the alien craft. These ships look like they were built for speed. Maybe fighters. This whole place feels like a warship, Voren said, his voice tense. Look at the design. Efficient. Nothing wasted. Built for a purpose. They made their way out of the docking bay into a long corridor. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly with a blue light. Can you read any of this? James asked over their communication link. Not yet, Alina replied. But the symbols seem to be reacting to our presence. They're getting brighter. As they moved deeper into the ship, they found more evidence of its military nature. Rooms filled with what looked like weapon storage, areas that could only be firing ranges for training. But strangely, they found no crew quarters, no command center. Where is everyone? Marcus asked. A ship this size would need hundreds of crew members. Maybe they abandoned it, Voren suggested. They reached a massive door at the end of a corridor. Unlike the others they had passed, this one was sealed tight. Can we open it? Alina asked. Marcus studied the control panel beside the door. I think so. The ship's systems seem to be in a low-power state, but they're still functioning. He worked on the panel for several minutes, then stepped back as the massive door began to slide open slowly. A soft humming filled the air, growing louder as the door revealed what was behind it. They stood frozen, staring at the enormous chamber beyond the door. It was filled with rows upon rows of strange, transparent pods, each big enough to hold a human-sized being. A faint light pulsed within each pod, like a heartbeat. What is this place? Voren whispered. Before anyone could answer, the lights in the chamber suddenly brightened. The humming grew louder. All around them, the ship was coming to life. Captain, Voren called urgently over the comm. Something's happening. A ship is activating. Get back to the shuttle, James ordered. Now. But as they turned to leave, the door slid shut behind them. They were trapped. The ship's systems are waking up, Marcus said, checking his scanner. Power levels rising all over the vessel. On the walls, the strange symbols glowed brighter, changing patterns rapidly as if communicating. One by one, the pods in the chamber began to pulse with stronger light. Captain, we can't get out, Voren reported. The doors locked us in. In the silence that followed, they heard a new sound, a deep, resonating tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It filled the chamber, vibrating through their bodies. What is that? Alina asked, her voice barely audible over the tone. I think, Marcus said slowly, the ship is talking to us. The tone changed, becoming a series of patterns. The symbols on the walls flashed in response. It's some kind of language, Alina realized. She pulled out her scanner and began recording. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Through the small windows in the chamber, they could see space outside beginning to move. The stars shifted position. Captain, Voren called urgently. The ship is moving. We can see it, James replied, his voice tense. It's changing course, and its weapon systems are coming online. The ghost ship, silent for who knew how long, was awake now, and it was preparing for battle. Light years away, on the bridge of a massive warship, Admiral Dorn of the Voren fleet stared at the urgent message on his screen. His scaled skin paled to a light green as he read the report again. It cannot be, he whispered. His second-in-command, Officer Krell, approached with caution. Admiral, what is wrong? Dorn pointed a clawed finger at the screen. The destroyer has returned. Krell's eyes widened. Impossible. It vanished centuries ago. Our long-range scanners have detected it. The energy signature is unmistakable. Dorn stood up, his tall frame towering over the other officers on the bridge. Alert all battle stations. Prepare the fleet. We must destroy it before it awakens fully. As the Voren ship erupted into activity, Dorn walked to the large window overlooking space. The destroyer was a nightmare from Voren history, a vessel that had appeared without warning 300 years ago. It had turned 15 Voren worlds uninhabitable in less than a month before mysteriously disappearing. "We will not allow history to repeat itself," Dorn vowed. Back on the alien ship, Marcus was working frantically to understand the control panel next to the sealed door. Thorn stood guard with his weapon ready, while Elena studied the strange pods filling the chamber. "Any progress?" Thorn asked, his voice tense. "Not yet," Marcus replied. "The systems are unlike anything I've seen before. It's like they're organic somehow." Elena's voice called from across the room. "You need to see this." They joined her at one of the transparent pods. Inside was not a weapon as they had feared, but a collection of what looked like plants and soil samples. "This isn't a weapons storage," Elena said, excitement in her voice despite their situation. "It's some kind of biological sample chamber." Marcus frowned. "But the ship's design, everything we've seen points to a warship." "Maybe not," Elena said. "We've been seeing what we expected to see. Those rooms we thought were weapon storage. What if they're seed vaults? And those firing ranges could be testing grounds for different environments." Captain James's voice came through their comms. "Whatever it is, you need to find a way out now. We're picking up multiple ships approaching fast, and they don't look friendly." Thorn checked his scanner. "The ship's weapons are active, but they haven't fired. It's like it's waiting for something." Suddenly, the strange symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. The ship hummed with increasing power. "I think I've got it," Marcus said, his fingers dancing over the control panel. "The ship's language is based on mathematical patterns. I've been trying to communicate using our standard codes, but..." The door slid open. "How did you do that?" Thorn asked. Marcus looked puzzled. "I didn't. I think the ship understood what we're trying to do." They moved quickly back into the corridor, which was now fully lit. The symbols on the walls pulsed as if guiding them. "Follow the lights," Elena suggested. "I think it's showing us where to go." On the bridge of the horizon, Captain James watched with growing concern as a fleet of alien ships appeared on their scanners. The vessels were sleek and clearly designed for combat, with multiple weapon ports glowing with energy. "They're hailing us," Ryan reported. "Open a channel," James ordered. The screen flickered to show a tall, reptilian being with scaled green skin and vertical pupils. Behind him, a busy bridge crew worked at various stations. "Human vessel," the alien said, its voice deep and hostile. "You have awakened the destroyer. Remove your people immediately or be eliminated with it." James stood straight, trying to project confidence. "I am Captain James of the Earth vessel Horizon. We mean no harm. We found this ship abandoned and are merely exploring." "That ship brought death to 15 of our worlds." The alien cut him off. "It will not do so again. You have 10 minutes to evacuate your people before we open fire." The communication ended abruptly. James immediately opened a channel to his team. "Thorn, Elena, Marcus, you need to get out now. We have alien vessels threatening to attack in less than 10 minutes. "We're trying, Captain," Thorn replied. "The ship is taking us somewhere." The team followed the pulsing lights through corridors that seemed to be changing as they walked. Walls shifted, doors opened and closed, guiding them deeper into the massive vessel. "It's like it's alive," Elena whispered. They entered a large circular room that could only be the bridge. Unlike the utilitarian design of human ships, this one was beautiful, with flowing curves and living plants integrated into the control stations. A soft, golden light filled the room. "This doesn't look like a warship's bridge," Marcus said, approaching what appeared to be the central console. As he touched it, a holographic display appeared above the console, showing the Voren fleet surrounding them. Red warning symbols flashed. "I think it's telling us we're in danger," Elena said. Marcus studied the controls. "There's some kind of log or record system here, if I can access it." As he worked, Thorn kept watch at the door. "Captain, we've reached what looks like the bridge. Marcus is trying to access the ship's logs." "Hurry," James replied. The alien commander, I think they called themselves Vorens, says this ship destroyed 15 of their worlds. They're calling it the Destroyer. Elena looked up sharply. That can't be right. Everything we're seeing suggests this ship was designed to create, not destroy. Marcus finally managed to activate something on the console. The holographic display changed to show a recording. They watched as the ship approached a planet covered in industrial waste and pollution. The ship deployed smaller vessels that released something into the atmosphere. Within minutes, the recording showed plants beginning to grow, spreading rapidly across the damaged landscape. It's a terraforming ship, Elena breathed. It doesn't destroy worlds, it heals them. Before they could process this revelation, the ship shuddered violently. They're firing on us, James shouted through the comm. The Voren fleet had opened fire, their energy weapons striking both the alien ship and the horizon. Our shields won't hold for long, James reported. You need to get out of there now. But as Marcus moved away from the console, the alien ship responded. The entire bridge lit up, and they felt the vessel surge with power. On the holographic display, they could see defensive shields activating, deflecting the Voren attacks. It's protecting itself, Voren said, and us. The ship moved with surprising grace for its size, positioning itself between the horizon and the Voren fleet. Its weapon ports glowed, but instead of firing destructive energy, they released a pulse of blue light that disabled the weapons on the nearest Voren ships without damaging them. It's not trying to destroy them, Elena realized. It's just neutralizing the threat. Marcus continued working on the console, his face illuminated by the holographic display. I think I'm starting to understand its language. This ship was created by a race called, there's no direct translation, but something like gardeners or cultivators. They built it to restore planets damaged by industrial pollution. Then why do the Vorens see it as a destroyer? Voren asked. Marcus found another recording and played it. It showed Voren ships attacking the alien vessel as it approached one of their planets. The recording then showed the same planet before and after the ship's intervention, changing from a toxic wasteland to a thriving ecosystem. I think I understand, Elena said slowly. The Vorens were deliberately polluting their planets for some reason. This ship came and reversed the damage against their will. They see it as destruction because it undid what they were trying to achieve. The ship shuddered again as more Voren weapons fire hit their shields. We need to find a way to communicate with the Vorens, James said over the comm. Tell them the truth before it's too late. As if in response to his words, the central console opened, revealing a crystal that glowed with inner light. Marcus reached for it hesitantly. I think, he said, this is how we speak to the ship. Marcus stared at the glowing crystal in the console. It pulsed with a gentle blue light, almost like a heartbeat. Should I touch it? He asked, looking at Elena and Voren. It could be dangerous, Voren warned, his hand on his weapon. Elena moved closer, studying the crystal. I don't think it means us harm. This ship could have killed us many times already if that was its intent. The ship shuddered again as more Voren weapons hit its shields. We don't have much choice, Marcus said. Captain, I'm going to try to communicate with the ship directly. Be careful, James replied through the comm. Our shields are failing. We can't hold out much longer. Taking a deep breath, Marcus placed his hand on the crystal. Immediately, a warm sensation spread up his arm and into his mind. Images flashed before his eyes. Planets being healed, ecosystems restored, life blooming in places that had been dead. Then he saw the Vorens, centuries ago. They were mining their planets for rare minerals, leaving toxic wastelands behind. The ship, which called itself the Garden of Dawn, had been sent to repair this damage. The Vorens had fought back, calling the ship a destroyer of their industry. Marcus pulled his hand away, gasping. I saw its memories. The ship, it's called the Garden of Dawn. It was built to heal planets, not destroy them. Did it show you how to communicate with the Vorens? Voren asked urgently. I think so, Marcus said, turning back to the console. "It wants to establish a direct link to their ships." Working quickly, Marcus used the knowledge the ship had shared with him. The holographic display changed, showing Admiral Dorn's face. "Voren vessel," Marcus began. "Please cease fire. This ship is not what you think it is." Dorn's scaled face showed surprise, then anger. "Humans, you dare to control the destroyer." "We don't control it." Elena stepped forward. "We just understand what it truly is. This isn't a weapon of destruction. It's a terraforming vessel designed to heal damaged planets." "Lies," Dorn hissed. "Our history records the devastation it brought to 15 Voren worlds." "Those records are wrong," Marcus said firmly. "Or they were changed. We've seen the ship's own memories. It came to restore your planets after they were damaged by mining operations." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "The old mining operations. That was before my time. But our records are clear." A younger Voren officer appeared beside Dorn, whispering urgently in his ear. The Admiral's expression changed. "Admiral," the young officer said, loud enough for the humans to hear, "there are protests on 3 homeworlds. The old stories are spreading again. The ones our government tried to suppress." "What old stories?" Elena asked quickly. The young officer looked at her. "Stories that the ship you're on was a healer, not a destroyer. That our ancestors drove it away because it interfered with the mining corporation's profits." Dorn pushed the younger officer aside. "Enough. These are just tales told by environmentalist rebels." Another violent blast rocked both ships. On the holographic display, they could see more Voren vessels joining the attack. "Admiral," Captain James cut in, his face appearing on a separate screen. "I don't know what the truth is about your history, but I do know that neither this ancient ship nor my vessel has fired a single destructive shot at you. We've only used defensive measures. Does that seem like the action of a destroyer?" Dorn hesitated, clearly conflicted. Taking advantage of the moment, Marcus placed his hand on the crystal again. This time, he knew what to do. The ship responded immediately, projecting a massive hologram into space between the vessels. The hologram showed the history of the Garden of Dawn, its creation by the long-extinct gardeners, its mission to heal damaged worlds, and its encounters with the Voren centuries ago. It showed how the Voren mining corporations had attacked the ship to prevent it from restoring their polluted planets. It showed how the ship had been damaged and forced to enter a dormant state, drifting in space until the humans found it. "This is propaganda," Dorn shouted, but they could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Admiral," the young officer said, "these images match the forbidden histories my grandmother told me. The histories that speak of a time when our people lived in harmony with our worlds, before the great mining operations began." More Voren ships had arrived, surrounding both the Garden of Dawn and the horizon in a tight formation. But not all of them were firing. Some seemed to be holding back, their crews perhaps watching the holographic history with new understanding. "Even if what you say is true," Dorn said finally, "this ship interfered with our sovereign right to use our planets as we saw fit. It is still an enemy." "Is it?" Elena asked. "Look at what happened to those 15 worlds after they were restored. Are they not now the most prosperous planets in your system? Are they not the homeworlds of your most healthy and successful populations?" The Admiral did not answer, but his silence spoke volumes. On the bridge of the Garden of Dawn, Marcus felt the ship communicating with him again. This time, it showed him how to access its most important systems. "This ship can help your people," Marcus told the Admiral. "It can teach you how to restore your worlds without losing the resources you need. The gardeners who built it didn't believe in denying progress. They believed in sustainable progress." The firing from some of the Voren ships had stopped completely now. The younger officer was speaking urgently to others on his bridge, and similar conversations seemed to be happening throughout the fleet. "Admiral Dorn," a new voice broke in. An older Voren appeared on the screen, wearing elaborate robes. "I am Elder Traz of the High Council. We have been monitoring this exchange. The historical records this ship provides match our secret archives. The truth has been hidden for too long. Dorn looked shocked. High Elder, you cannot mean. I mean that we must cease fire immediately, Elder Traz said firmly. For centuries, our government has hidden the truth about the Garden of Dawn. It is time for that to end. Slowly, the weapons on the Voren ships powered down. The siege was lifting. But just as hope began to rise, alarms sounded throughout the Garden of Dawn. The ship trembled, and the lights flickered. What's happening? Thorin asked, looking around. Marcus checked the console. The ship sustained damage during the attack. Its core systems are failing. It's been dormant for too long, and the battle woke it before it was ready. Elena moved quickly to another control panel. Is there anything we can do to help it? I don't know, Marcus said. Its systems are incredibly complex. The crystal in the console was pulsing more weakly now, its light fading. It's dying, Elena whispered. Outside, the first rays of a nearby star began to touch the hull of the ancient vessel. The ship had drifted into the light of dawn. And as the light grew stronger, something unexpected began to happen. As the first light of dawn touched the ancient ship, its hull began to change. The dark metal that had made it look like a weapon of war slowly transformed. Where there had been sharp angles, there were now gentle curves. Sections that had appeared to be weapon ports opened like flower petals, revealing crystal panels that caught the starlight and broke it into beautiful colors. Look, Elena gasped, pointing at the holographic display that showed the ship's exterior. The Garden of Dawn was living up to its name. In the light of the nearby star, it was revealing its true form, not a warship, but a vessel of life and beauty. It's absorbing the starlight, Marcus said, checking the readings on the console. The ship is solar-powered. That's why it was dormant for so long in the darkness of deep space. A crystal in the console pulsed stronger now, its blue light becoming golden as it filled with energy. The ship's trembling stopped, and the alarms fell silent. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Dorn watched in amazement as the feared destroyer transformed before his eyes. "This is impossible," he whispered. But Elder Traz nodded slowly. "It is as the old story said. The ship of dawn changes with the light." Inside the Garden of Dawn, Marcus placed his hand on the crystal again. This time, the connection was stronger, clearer. The ship's history flowed into his mind in greater detail. "I can see it all now," he told Elena and Thorin. "The gardeners built this ship to travel the galaxy, healing worlds damaged by war or industrial pollution. They visited thousands of planets over centuries. What happened to them?" Elena asked. "The gardeners, I mean." Marcus's face grew sad as the ship shared more of its memories. "They died out. A plague swept through their homeworld and colonies. The few who survived uploaded their knowledge into ships like this one and sent them out to continue their work. So this ship has been alone, carrying on its mission without its creators?" Thorin asked, his usual caution softened by sympathy. "Yes," Marcus said, "for over 1,000 years." Captain James's voice came through their comms. "The Voren fleet is standing down. Most of their ships are retreating to a safe distance, but they're no longer in attack formation." "Captain," Elena said, "you won't believe what's happening here. The ship is transforming in the sunlight. It's beautiful." "I can see it on our scanners," James replied. "The energy readings have changed completely." As they spoke, new sections of the ship began to open. Walls slid away to reveal vast chambers, filled with plants and trees, self-contained ecosystems that had been hidden beneath the warlike exterior. "Follow me," Marcus said, feeling the ship's guidance through the crystal. "It wants to show us something." They left the bridge, following corridors that were now lined with living plants growing from what had seemed like solid metal walls. Light streamed in through newly revealed windows. The air was fresher, filled with the scent of growing things. They entered a massive dome at the center of the ship. Above them stretched a transparent ceiling showing the stars and the nearby sun. Below was an enormous garden with trees, flowers, and a small lake. It was like standing in the middle of a perfect forest on Earth. "This is incredible," Elena whispered, touching a leaf on a nearby tree. "These are samples from thousands of worlds. A living library of life." "No wonder it needs solar power," Thorn said. "It's supporting an entire ecosystem." In the center of the garden stood a pedestal with a larger version of the crystal from the bridge. As they approached, it began to glow brighter. "I think it wants us to activate it," Marcus said. Together, the three of them placed their hands on the crystal. Light flowed from it, forming a holographic image above them. A figure appeared, tall and slender, with features that seemed both plant-like and humanoid. "A gardener," Elena breathed. The figure spoke, its voice translated by the ship into words they could understand. "Greetings, new friends. If you are viewing this message, you have awakened the Garden of Dawn from its long sleep. I am Voren, last navigator of this vessel. Our race is no more, but our mission continues through ships like this one. We traveled the stars, bringing life back to worlds damaged by war, pollution, or natural disaster. We sought no reward, only the continuation of life in all its forms." A hologram change, showing scenes of barren worlds being transformed into vibrant living planets. "This ship contains the seeds and genetic material of millions of species from across the galaxy. It can analyze any damaged ecosystem and provide the exact balance of life forms needed to restore it. It is not a destroyer, but a healer, though sometimes healing requires the removal of that which causes harm." The hologram shifted again, showing the ship's encounter with the Voren worlds. "The people you know as Vorens were destroying their own planets for short-term gain. Their leaders refused our help, but their people suffered. We chose to act despite their leaders' objections. This was perhaps our only violation of our code of non-interference. The ship was damaged in the conflict and forced to flee, entering a dormant state to repair itself." Marcus, Elena, and Thorn exchanged looks as the truth of the ship's history was confirmed. "The Garden of Dawn now passes to you. Its knowledge and power are yours to use wisely. May you continue our work, bringing life where there is death, healing where there is harm. The ship will teach you what you need to know." The hologram faded, leaving them standing in silence around the crystal. "Did it just give us the ship?" Thorn asked in disbelief. "I think it did," Elena said softly. Marcus still had his hand on the crystal. "It's more than that. It's asking us to continue its mission, to become the new gardeners." Their conversation was interrupted by Captain James's urgent voice on the comm. "Team, we've got a situation. The Voren ships are coming back." They rushed to a nearby window. Through it, they could see that the Voren fleet was indeed returning, forming a circle around the Garden of Dawn and the horizon. "Are they preparing to attack again?" Thorn asked, reaching for his weapon. "No," Marcus said, feeling the ship's thoughts through his connection to the crystal. "The ship doesn't sense any hostile intent." A communication request flashed on a panel near them. Marcus accepted it, and Elder Traz's face appeared. "Humans," the Elder Voren said, "what you have revealed today has shaken the foundations of our society. For centuries, our government hid the truth about the Garden of Dawn and its mission. The corporations that destroyed our worlds for profit twisted the narrative, making this ship of healing into a monster in our history." The Elder bowed his head. "We have much to atone for. Many of our worlds still suffer from the damage of that time. Others have been restored but are poorly managed. We would request the aid of the Garden of Dawn once more." Elena looked at Marcus. "Can the ship help them?" Marcus nodded, feeling the ship's eager response. "It was built for exactly this purpose. It wants to fulfill its mission. There's just one problem," Thorn pointed out. "None of us knows how to operate a ship like this. It's far beyond our technology." A soft chime sounded from the crystal. Marcus listened to the ship's thoughts. "The ship says it can teach us," he said slowly. "It was designed to pass its knowledge to new crews when the time came. It's been waiting for someone to awaken it, and continue its work. Captain James's voice came through again. What's happening down there? The Vorens are requesting to send representatives aboard both ships. Captain, Elena replied, excitement in her voice. I think we just became diplomats for the most important mission of our lives. As she spoke, the dome above them filled with the full light of the rising sun. The Garden of Dawn gleamed like a jewel in space, no longer the feared warrior vessel of legend, but revealed at last in its true purpose. And in that light, the humans faced a choice that would change not just their lives, but the fate of countless worlds across the galaxy. 1 week had passed since the humans first boarded the Garden of Dawn. The ancient vessel now orbited a small Voren colony world called Trasfor, named after the elder who had helped reveal the truth. Captain James stood on the observation deck of the ship, watching a small shuttlecraft move between the Garden of Dawn and the planet below. The once barren world was already showing signs of change. Green patches had begun to appear on its surface, where the ship's healing technology had been deployed. It's happening even faster than we expected, Elena said, joining him at the window. The ship says the full restoration will take less than a year. James nodded, still amazed by what they have discovered. Have you heard from Marcus? He's still in the knowledge chamber, Elena replied. The ship is teaching him about the advanced healing systems. He says it's like learning 1,000 years of science in days. Thorn entered the observation deck, accompanied by 2 Voren officers. Unlike their first meeting, the aliens now showed no fear or hostility toward the humans. Captain, Thorn said, the Voren High Council has sent their official request. James turned to face them. Let me guess. They want us to restore more of their worlds. The taller Voren, Officer Merrick, bowed slightly. Yes, Captain. Our leaders have finally acknowledged the damage done to our ecosystem over centuries. There are 17 worlds in urgent need of the Garden of Dawn's help. 17 worlds, James repeated. That would take years. We understand this is a significant commitment, the second Voren said. But your discovery of this ship has changed everything for our people. For centuries, we were taught that technology and progress meant taking from our planets. Now we see there is another way. James looked out at the stars. What had begun as a simple exploration mission had turned into something much more important. His superiors back on Earth had been stunned by his reports. They had given him extraordinary authority to negotiate with the Vorens and use the Garden of Dawn as he saw fit. What do you think? He asked Elena and Thorn. The ship wants to do this, Elena said simply. It's what it was built for. Thorn nodded. And honestly, sir, I can't think of a more important mission than bringing life back to dead worlds. James made his decision. Tell your council we accept, but we'll need help. We need Voren scientists and crew members to join us. This ship was meant to be a place where different species work together. The Vorens agreed eagerly and left to communicate the news to their leaders. I never imagined our mission would end up like this, James said when they were alone again. End. Elena laughed. Captain, I think it's just beginning. Deep in the heart of the Garden of Dawn, Marcus sat in the knowledge chamber. The walls around him were covered with living displays showing the intricate details of countless ecosystems. The central crystal pulsed with light as it transferred information directly into his mind. He had been here for days, learning from the ship. The knowledge was vast: how to analyze damaged environments, how to select the right combination of plants and animals to restore balance, how to use the ship's technology to speed up natural processes that would normally take centuries. But today, the ship was showing him something different. It was showing him other vessels like the Garden of Dawn, dozens of them, sent out by the gardeners before their extinction, each carrying the same mission to different parts of the galaxy. There are more ships out there, Marcus asked aloud, knowing the ship could understand him. The crystal pulsed in confirmation. Images showed other healing ships, some active, some dormant, scattered across the stars. Can we find them? Wake them? Again, the crystal pulsed. A star map appeared, showing the last known locations of the other vessels. Marcus understood what the ship was suggesting. The Garden of Dawn had found new caretakers in the humans and Vorens. Perhaps its sister ships could also be awakened, creating a fleet of healing vessels that could restore life throughout the galaxy. He stood up, excited to share this discovery with the others. On the bridge of the Garden of Dawn, a small ceremony was taking place. Representatives from both the human crew and the Voren fleet had gathered to officially mark the beginning of their joint mission. Captain James stood next to Elder Traz, facing the assembled crew. The bridge had transformed since they first discovered it. What had once seemed cold and mechanical was now alive with plants growing along the walls and ceiling. Light streamed in through crystal panels, and the air was fresh and sweet. "Today marks a new beginning," James said. "For too long, our species have seen progress as something that comes at the cost of our worlds. The Garden of Dawn teaches us a different path, one where technology and nature work together in harmony." Elder Traz stepped forward. "For centuries, my people feared this ship, calling it the Destroyer. We were wrong. It came not to destroy, but to heal. Not to take, but to give." He bowed deeply to the ship itself. "We ask forgiveness for our blindness and pledge to walk the path of balance from this day forward." As if in response, the crystal at the center of the bridge glowed brightly. The holographic figure of Loren, the last gardener, appeared once more. "Your words are accepted," the ancient recording said. "The cycle continues. New gardeners arise." Though it was just a recording, the message seemed perfectly timed, as if the ship had been waiting for this moment. Marcus burst onto the bridge, his face flushed with excitement. "Captain, Elder, the ship has shown me something incredible. There are other vessels like this one out there, waiting to be found." A murmur of amazement spread through the gathered crew. "A fleet of healing ships," Elena whispered. "Imagine what we could accomplish." James looked at Elder Traz, who nodded in understanding. Their mission had just grown much larger. "First, we restore the Voren worlds as promised," James said. "Then, we search for the other ships." As he spoke, the Garden of Dawn began to move, turning gracefully toward the damaged planet below. Its outer hull, now fully transformed in the light, gleamed with colors that seemed to shift and change like a living thing. Sections opened like blossoming flowers, preparing to release the seeds and organisms that would bring life back to the barren world. On the surface below, Voren colonists gathered outside their domed habitats to watch. Many had brought their children to witness the historic moment. They pointed up at the sky where the Garden of Dawn shone like a new star. "Look," a Voren parent told a child. "That is not a warrior ship as our old stories claimed. It is a healer, a maker of worlds." "Will our planet be green again?" the child asked. "Yes," the parent replied. "The dawn is breaking on a new age for our people." Above them, the ship that had been feared as a destroyer for centuries began its work of creation. Light streamed from its open sections, carrying the seeds of life down to the waiting world. And standing on the bridge, humans and Vorens together watched as the first new forests began to grow on the planet below, spreading like a green wave across the land that had been dead for generations. The Garden of Dawn had found its purpose once more, and with it, both species had found a new path forward, not as conquerors of worlds, but as their caretakers and healers. The dawn had truly broken on a new age for all.